gravity of climate change is so broad and so wide, and sometimes it mixes up with other issues. For example, like coral reef and coral reef bleaching. There's a significant aspect of that. What is prompting that is global warming, the warming of the ocean. When the temperature is above 29 degrees Celsius, you could look out and say, yes, coral bleaching is likely. Anytime it hit 30 or 31 is a disaster.
Field where we're doing cocoa farming, our concern is with it disrupted the bearing and the bearing cycle, in that we never able to predict when it's going to be rainy season or dry season. So in effect, we had a cocoa crop all year long, and the major bearing season was a little bit less. The harvest from that time was significantly less. And where drying cocoa was, it's been so hot that it even disrupted the harvesting, the drying process.
The bleaching of coral reefs, the disappearance of water wells, and the decrease in the output of cocoa crops are just 3 areas that show the impact that climate change is having on Tobago's resources. Using participatory 3D to create a model of the island's natural resources, villagers have been able to document their spatial knowledge and see for themselves the impact of climate change on these resources, and showcase the various coping mechanisms they use to mitigate the impacts.
CANARI tries to answer a research question in each one of its activities. And the research question we are trying to answer here really involves figuring out if there are tools available, or the effectiveness of tools in incorporating traditional knowledge into decision making about climate change. So we're evaluating how effective this methodology is in incorporating traditional knowledge into action on climate change. I think it has really worked well here in Tobago, in that we have had a lot of valuable information being placed on the map, a lot of valuable information being brought forward in a way that everybody could understand.
Tobago is part of the twin island republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Though the mainstay of Trinidad's economy is oil and natural gas, non-renewable forms of energy, residents on both islands are passionate about preserving their environment. Rich in flora and fauna, Tobago boasts mangrove swamps, open ocean and seagrass beds, forests, rivers and streams, and karst landscapes, caves especially. Man-made ecosystems exist alongside farms and other agricultural land sites, freshwater dams and secondary forests, and open grassland areas. Building the 3D of Tobago has raised the consciousness of members of various communities on the need to protect the island's ecosystems and resources.
In Ghana, that was Tobago's first capital, because the year they had the first sitting of any organized government on the 12th of February 1760. That is Georgetown, that was the Apata study park today. That was the was for Gambia. So monks in George, the literary Upper Georgetown under the hill. Okay? Okay? And it was a short lift up. Right.
The capital
Never a capital.
Tobago, like the rest of the Caribbean, is not immune to the debilitating impact of climate change, and its small size as compared to Europe and North America could see the region running the risk of being ignored in the global climate change discussion. However, CANARI, the Caribbean Natural Resources Institute, is ensuring that the region has an important role and voice in this discussion, with its mandate being promoting and facilitating equitable participation and effective collaboration in the management of natural resources, critical to development in the Caribbean islands, so that people will have a better quality of life, and natural resources will be conserved through action, learning and research, capacity building, communication, and fostering partnerships. CANARI was assisted in the P3D exercise by representatives from the University of the West Indies, UWI, the Tobago House of Assembly Division of Agriculture, Marine Affairs, Marketing and the Environment, and partners with Melanesians, PWM. The project was funded by the Technical Center for Agricultural and Rural Cooperation, CTA, and the United Nations Development Programme, and the Global Environmental Facility GEF Small Grants Programme. The objective in building the 3D model of Tobago was to reduce the knowledge gap on climate change between community members and policymakers, while simultaneously empowering communities to preserve their natural resources. The project was also intended to empower civil society so as to influence policy making. Interestingly, the participatory 3D model of Tobago is referred to as SHE, as in she becomes more beautiful, the motto for the island's annual Heritage Festival. The logo depicts a naked woman of African descent. Selecting this motto as the theme of the exercise was particularly apt and deeply important for the various Tobago communities that came together to document the island's natural resources, the impact of climate on these resources, and the measures used by villagers to adapt and manage the changes. Essentially, too, using this title for the participatory exercise captured the notion of merging culture with tradition and modernity, all prominent components of the participatory model. One of the significant aspects of building the P3D model was the training of other Caribbean nationals, intellectuals and activists in the October 2012 pilot project. These trainees came from various agencies, including non-governmental, intergovernmental and community-based organizations. They learned how to document traditional knowledge through georeferencing and describing it on a map, and what adaptation strategies were being used to deal with climate change. The trainees also benefited from lessons on facilitation, logistics, and budgeting. The entire process of learning and doing was documented and assessed through the use of participatory video.
And then we will go and see them choirs who battle up Charlottesville. So, why, come let we go, let we go. Why, come let we go, let we go. Why, come let we go, let we go.
The meticulous process of building the model was soon superseded by the exciting phase of interaction among community members who depicted their mental maps onto the model. A total of 106 residents of Tobago contributed to populating the model with a wealth of data. By the time the model was complete, informants had a better idea of where their resources were and what they had to do to preserve their environment. They had built the model and taken ownership of it. Some returned day after day with more knowledge and input more information. Others came to add information and verify what was there.
And this should be a little bit up. This is why you're getting a mistake with it. Because these rocks should be about here.
The island of Tobago is an island with oceans all around it. And the livelihood of the people here is based on farming and agriculture on the land, and also living of the marine environment, the fish, the crabs in the mangroves and the wetlands. So it's more or less a society that is based on farming the land and fisher folks living off from the marine environment. So in the event of an island community, the impact of climate change from the exercise that we have gone through over the last week, it's very clear that the people, especially the fisher folks, are saying that the fish catches are reducing. And the people who are mostly living on the land, going into agriculture and farming, are saying that they're facing with a lot of soil erosion and siltation, and the climate and weather pattern is erratic. It's not coming at the time it used to be in the past. So these are clear indications that Trinidad and Tobago and the whole Caribbean are going into these major climate change events that are affecting their livelihood.
Well, I am, as usually, impressed by what the community has done. I've been doing these kind of exercises in many parts of the world, and I never stop being amazed on what comes out. I have been counting just a few minutes ago the layers of information, and it's 84 layers of information, which means 84 different types of pieces of information which are visible on the model. Now, if one had to collect this kind of data, not only in terms of numbers, but in terms of spatial distribution through conventional means, it would take years to do that. And that happened in a week's time. So I think that this is the marvel of this tool.
I hope that this model will become a living model. And there will be an emerging picture of Tobago that will reflect their long-term relationship to the island.
After much work, the P3D model was handed over to the Tobago House of Assembly, THA, the island's governing body.
Everyone knows in Tobago we pride ourselves for many years now with the mantra at Tobago we want Tobago to be clean, green, safe and serene. And so therefore our focus on the environment in Tobago has always been a very critical aspect of our approach to the development and to the quality of life of the people of Tobago. This exercise is a step in the right direction as it gives us an added tool to be able to carry out initiatives, development initiatives in Tobago of all sorts, because it basically allows for development that is fueled by the persons for whom that development is really targeted.
More people in Tobago have been exposed to the island's participatory 3D model. Students particularly took more than a casual interest in the model at the annual World Food Day celebrations at the Dwight York Stadium, held during October 17th to 19th, 2012. Additionally, more persons from civil society organizations were given the opportunity to add information to the model and develop a plan of action to address the impact of climate change 2 weeks after it was complete. The civil society members identified food security, tourism, infrastructure and utilities, water resources, wetlands and forest resources as key sectors to be considered when dealing with climate change impacts. They also came up with possible solutions to reduce Tobago's vulnerability, one of which is the need for the government to increase the level of consultation with civil society in relation to mitigating climate change impacts. Another is civil society playing a more integral role in the climate change arena. Perhaps most importantly though, now that the participatory P3DM model of Tobago is completed, with its features and challenges clearer in everybody's mind, Tobagonians are determined to ensure the preservation of the environment by replanting trees, examining the viability of wildlife farming, stopping the burning of trees and tires, promoting green living, and taking a proactive approach to protecting the environment. As the custodian of the P3DM, the THA is expected to facilitate the updating of the model as resources on the island change.
Future generations will be able to look at it and say, yes, this is how people in 2012 saw Tobago. There were disagreements, but we finally decided that this is the way we saw Tobago. It will serve as a time capsule.